Again, I appreciate the opportunity with landowners, anybody that listens about prescribed fire. We all understand how important it is. We also understand how challenging it is. So, the topic of this is really to burn or not to burn. That's the question. We all know it's getting much tougher to do that, but it's the right thing to do. First question often is asked, well, who ought to be burning? And to me, it's real simple. Anybody who has the privilege to steward lands, because in the southeast and most all of Alabama, unless you're in a Tupelo gum swamp, we're dealing with fire-adapted systems. I mean, the good Lord made them that way to burn, to function. So anybody who takes care of these systems for landowners, clients, whatever, landowners should burn. Governments, state, local, federal, all of these groups that are shown here ought to be burning, and that makes up the majority of the landscape. It's a lot of fun, but it's inherently dangerous. This is a friend of mine up in Chambers County on a client's land. And Josh, he's a county engineer for Chambers, and he's got a deer hunting lease. Well, when I first started working on this property, normally your deer hunting, turkey hunting, your lease guys are kind of inky about cutting trees and doing stuff. I thought he was going to kiss me when I told him we were going to burn. He said, let me know the day you burn, and I'd like to come out there. So I got this picture. I mean, you couldn't slap that smile off his face, because he knew we were actually going to improve the habitat for deer and turkey. This is a landowner in western Chambers County that again came out one day when I was burning. This stand was 15 years old. It hadn't been burned since it was planted. So we'd actually picked a good day when we knew we'd have a fairly cool burn. You can tell, those are 5 and 6 foot flame lengths when the humidity is 55%, but it's a 15-year-old rub. But the landowner understood about fire, but he was afraid to do it, so he, had us do it. And again, Jeff, he's very happy to see this burn. Of course, you might recognize one of my other partners in crime, Ken Hanby, that also is a great proponent of burning, and Ken helps me on a lot of our projects. Next thing, I'm probably preaching to the choir, but the other question, particularly with those who don't get it, it's like, why are you burning? And because they were just raised and trained, to believe that all fire is bad. And of course, there's all kinds of categories. And the most common, probably, or the biggest need to me for landowners is this first one, hazard fuel reduction. Now, you're going to get a wildlife benefit and aesthetics and some of these other objectives will be met, but hazard fuel reduction, if it hadn't been burned in at least 5 years, that's probably the best use. Because on a bad fire day, a spring day, a fall day, when you have low humidity, winds, etc., if you don't burn it, Bubba might burn it for you, right? And then your timber gets tortured. So hazard fuel reduction is very important. And again, you have all these other aspects. If any of you, are as landowners, are getting ready to make a timber sale, another thing that's very helpful is one of these last ones. I call it a pre-marking burn. When you get ready to sell your timber and you're showing it and you have a prospectus out for a timber buyer or a purchaser, if the stands are open, fairly clean, that's going to bring a higher price because their logging costs will be down. Plus, you're going to add fuel from the timber sale action. So a pre-marking burn, like that one picture that hadn't been burned in 15 years, we're fixing to thin that stand next month. And even though an operator could thin through that stand no problem, I guarantee that stand is very open now with one treatment. It's going to make tree selection. It'll be a better quality product. So there's a lot of reasons for burning. Again, this is a pretty common landscape, a hazard fuel reduction. Stand hasn't been burned. It's fixing to get thin, so running the fire through that would actually reduce the fuel loading, improve the accessibility, and even younger stands. I personally believe in stands, burning stands, young stands as early as you can. And a lot of times the first burn, you want to burn when it's moist, fuel moisture is high, and you want to use a backing fire. And when it's backing real nice and easy like that, don't screw it up. Let it back. If you start trying to strip it and advance it too quickly, you're probably going to have a different result. So again, hazard fuel reduction, starting with very young stands. Obviously, another reason we burn is endangered species. Some critters, this is clearly needed. This is red cockaded woodpecker on Enid Plantation in Bullock County. Scott Fletch might recognize this. This is a track in Macon County that had been thinned about 5 weeks prior. So again, just hazard fuel reduction, plus it's going to just improve visibility. You can imagine the habitat bump you're going to get for deer and turkey. Those open conditions, they're going to transform that stand from just pine needles into grasses and forests, which are basically insect-producing factories. And turkeys love to eat bugs, quail eat bugs. Deer are going to have the browse. So the quicker you can convert it, get rid of litter, and make it turn into some grass for understory, you're producing insects. There's a lot of creatures out there that like bugs. Obviously, deer benefit from it. You can burn for young stands, even younger stands like longleaf. Maintain open, mature, park-like stands. Again, aesthetics. Even this, a lot of people, again, they've been lied to. A lot of them are like, oh, you can't burn in hardwoods, or you shouldn't burn in hardwoods. Well, and wrong answer. You know, it's just like in Sunday school, you know, Adam and Eve, they didn't need an apple, okay? There's not an apple in the Bible. So these upland stands of post oak and hickory, you can look at the understory, it's ferns. And this great quail habitat. This is on seaweed plantation. Now, when you burn constantly in hardwood, you have effects. There's no doubt. It doesn't kill the trees. They don't suddenly pop the bark open and get a lot of rot. But oak hickory stands, upland stands, they have thick bark. They've adapted to frequent low-intensity fire. So if you have upland stands and you want them to look like this for some resource objective, in this case, wild quail on seaweed plantation, frequent low-intensity use of fire is very appropriate. As we plant a lot of longleaf stands, you can kind of see some loblolly is going to invade. And the best way to road a loblolly out of a young longleaf stand is to screamer, you know, put a screaming head fire through those stands when they're young to kill that loblolly out. So your longleaf can get jumped there. Clearly, site prep is an objective. Again, this is a track advantage. And you can get a cheaper planting cost. I mean, this is pretty easy planting, right? And it was cut over track. So good site prep, a good clean burn makes the planting easier, which means lower price, lower cost to you, and it's probably going to give you much better results in survival. I love to burn piles. You know, to me, an unburned pile is waste. And so again, that's another resource objective. Here's a large field. Within this stand, we had all the slash accumulated. Me personally, I like to pull all the debris to one pile and burn it. I don't like them taking it back out and dropping it through the woods. They're just adding fuel to it. I'd rather have a pile on a good day, go out there and make it go away. And then clearly there's alternatives to burning. I'm promoting burning, but there are some times that, you know, fire is just not the right choice. So herbicide, harvesting, mechanical treatments, combinations, there's other ways of skinning a cat. But they're typically very expensive, and there's, you know, no substitute to the heat pulse of fire across the landscape. But again, this is up in Gwinnett, Alabama. It was a mitigation site, and if you can tell in the background, I mean, that was so thick you couldn't throw a cat through it. And so the background, that's what this stand looked like. So going in there, grinding all that fuel down, and then come back with 2 herbicide treatments to control all the privet and autumn olive and all of the invasive stuff. And if fire wanted to work in the background, the stuff was too advanced. But again, this is an example of how there are alternatives to fire. And granted, this is $400 an acre kind of treatment. You know, you can do a lot of prescribed fire treatments for that. Now remember, we're working in fire adapted landscapes. And the first 2 is what most of the southeast and Alabama falls into, what's called short return interval low intensity fire. This is just the way the good Lord designed it. Whether it's southern yellow pine, upland oak hickory, they typically have required some frequent low-intensity fire. And what's called short return interval sustained replacement are very similar to grass systems, where you're actually doing a sustained replacement burn. You're converting that grass system back down. And then in other parts of the country, the east, the mountain region, and the west, they have these much longer return intervals. So again, we're blessed to live in a system. This is an example, and again, I like to promote to people, if this is what you want, and right next to this stand you have some really big, ugly stand, okay, that needs fire. If you're constrained on financially or burn days or whatever, your much better to maintain what you got instead of turning your back on that and going chasing some system that's out of whack. So if you get these stands, these upland pine stands in that kind of condition, that's a high priority to maintain that. Every 2 to 4 years, put the fire in it because it'll stay that way. If you walk away from that stand and then burn it for 3, 4, 5 years, it's not going to look like that. Okay, then you got to start over. But again, this is an example right after the last log come off the deck, we're out there setting it on fire. And we try and put fire back in these stands. This is an example of, again, the taboo of, oh, you can't burn an upland oak hickory. Well, yeah, you can. And here's this beautiful grass for oak savanna, so to speak, that has tremendous habitat for deer and turkey, and plus aesthetically, it looks pretty nice. Okay, how frequent should you burn? Well, that's your call, but typically in upland hardwood, anywhere between 3 and 8 years, dormant season is probably the right thing to do, because ecologically, historically, that's probably the frequency that it has. If you've got long leaf systems, 1 to 3 years, depending on your jay. Again, you can read these others, but I'm personally a proponent of 2 to 3. You know, don't let it go past 3 in most pine systems. And obviously, you have Virginia pine or shortleaf pine. These are shorter needles, they compact, they don't burn as good, so they're not as necessarily, you know, burn as frequently. Because again, Virginia pine normally won't burn anyway, except on that high fire danger day, and then you don't want it to burn, because it will burn. What season should you burn? Well, again, typically it depends on your objective. Most of the burning is done in the dormant season, you know, December through mid to late March, because you get better atmospheric conditions, better, you know, smoke and get up and go. But every day is a burn day. Every day should be a burn day. You can actually pick, when you take all of the projects you want to do, you know, you can burn piles pretty much any time through the year. You can burn young log stands, long leaf stands, pretty much any time of the year. Most people choose to burn in the dormant season. So just don't overlook that there's this wide window from January 1st to December 31st that you can meet. When I was with the Forest Service, we first moved to Talladega in '84, coming from Arkansas. I had a lot of guys that said, well, you know, how much are we burning a year? This is 250,000 acres in national park. Well, we burn about 8,000 acres a year. Okay, why? Well, that's what we've always done. Okay. Why do you not burn in December? Oh, because of this. People will put limits on themselves. And now, there's a lot of times there is a reason why you don't burn in certain months, but just kind of take the blinders off, think outside of the box, don't miss opportunities. Because when people say, well, there's only 6 burn days a year, well, that's bull. There's many more burn days than that. Once you understand fuel moisture and how fire behavior works, you'll find out that you've limited yourself. And typically site prep, and there's a lot of that goes on, that can be any time from the fall up until the day that the crew's showing up to put trees in there. Now obviously there's a lot of considerations that you should have before you drop a match or you look at prescribed fire use. And one of course is fuels, weather topography, the season, the return interval, how frequently you're going to burn. All of these things go into your planning effort. And then the one that gets most people spooked is the legal side of it. And I mean, I'm not discounting, that's very, very real. But don't let that throw you. Once you understand the science and you do your planning and all, you really don't have anything to fear. If you have a burn plan and you have contingencies, if the wind shifts, if this happens, I'm prepared to pull the trigger and do this, you're fine. So most people are scared to death of fire, but it's not really warranted. Once you understand it, there's not much to be concerned about. Good planning will mitigate most of it. The next thing people ask, well, you know, I've got 40 acres, 400 acres, whatever. I want to burn it. You know, how much stuff do I need? Well, it depends. What's the size of the burn? How complex is it? Is it a low-risk burn? Are the fuel loading fairly small? Do you have many smoke-sensitive areas, smoke receptors? A lot of times when I'm burning in Bullock and Macon County, I mean, these are good country folks and they don't mind holding their breath. You know why you burn? I mean, they're not going to get all excited. You go burn up around Lynette, Alabama, West Point, Georgia, it's a different animal up there. You got a lot of curiosity seeking. So the complexity, what about your smoke? Are you going to need to do day and nighttime control? That would affect your staff and how many people you need. What's the fire danger? Who's your adjoining landowners? Are they ambulance chasers waiting for you to screw up that much to take a bite out of it? Or are they good neighbors? All of these things go into how much stuff do you need for a burn. This is a quick example. This is northwest Point, Georgia. It's about an 800-acre tract, so you can see roads, the pink lines are constructed fire lines with the dozen little blue dots are wet lines, creeks. So here's an 800-acre area. Well, how do you need an element? Well, a bite at a time. You can see what's on the east side of the road. Obviously, we need a different wind direction. You want some wind out of the west, right? Push smoke away from the road. So you couldn't do the east side and the west side on the same day. But you look at ways of cutting this fire down on the bottom so you can burn it between the road and the creek. So anyway, identify your project, how you're going to cut it up. So as you're going along, if everything's going good, then you take the next bite out. But you don't want to light off 800 acres and then have something affected. Now you got a first-class mess. So again, you can eliminate most of your concerns through good planning. Obviously, if you don't burn, that's fine. That's a choice, but there's consequences. And all of these kind of things can happen. And, you know, this is typical. This one of the pictures from Okefenokee. This is slash pine. I mean, this is in South Georgia, North Florida. This stuff's supposed to burn. It's supposed to burn fairly frequently. But when people decide not to burn for whatever reasons, economic or they're concerned about liability, and you let these flatwood systems that grow palmetto, tie, gallberry get 4 or 5 years or longer without burning, now you have 30 tons per acre of some of the most flammable material on the planet. And on the wrong kind of a day, you're going to get this standard replacement fire. You shouldn't be torching out 100-foot tall pine trees, okay? That's not normal. So this is a consequence that somebody paid, you know, by not burning fairly frequently. So again, step up to the plate. And clearly, again, this isn't anything you're not aware of, but there's always issues. Behind every issue, there's an opportunity. So the first one is this wild and urban interface. You know, there's consumption of wildlands, that's going on, but we have opportunities. So more and more of the rural land starting to have these people that have their third and fourth homes that live in Atlanta, and suddenly they get a little fussy, you know, about putting smoke. Not even on them. I mean, I smell smoke around the house. And it adds to the complexity. Now you have to deal with all of these structures and different people that are living out in the tubes. Liability insurance for those people that are burning is a big deal because the insurance industry does not get it. Now they'll insure you for anything, but when it comes to the market of prescribed burning, most of these insurance underwriters, they really don't understand the science. They're like most people, fire is bad, so if you want to burn in insurance, I'm going to really stick it to you. But if we can work with them and make them aware of certification, planning, I think they would see that there's very little risk. And then to me, the thing that really tells it all is when you look at how much prescribed fire use goes on across Alabama every year, close to 1 million acres. Now, how many bad things happen? How many lawsuits? How many people get killed? How much property damage is happening from, I'm just making this number up, and just say there's 10,000 prescribed fire projects a year in Alabama. How many of those burns go over the hill? I don't know, but probably count them on one hand, right? So what is the insurance company worried about? I mean, we're probably back 99.9%. That's pretty good. We ought to be getting low rates, but we have to make them understand that. And we also have to make them understand, well, here's what's behind door number 2, because if we don't burn, it's going to tear this timber up. It's going to start burning homes. We start putting people at risk. Those that we call to come out with fire departments, fire commission, the suppression people, now we're putting meat out in front of the fire. That's not good. So again, there's this big issue, liability for one of them, no doubt. So we have an opportunity. Another thing is a lot of times people say, well, you know, I really want to get my burning done, but I'm not going to do it. I'm afraid of it. I don't get it. You know, I'll hire somebody, but there's just not anybody out there. So again, that's real. So we have an opportunity to create a bigger pool of vendors or even trained landowners through a certified burn manager program to say, look, you don't really need to be afraid of this. You need to understand it and go forth cautiously. we can solve this problem. You know, we'll pick up the pace a little bit. The burn certification, as we mentioned, Ken Hamby, who's in this year, we're actually putting on 2 certifications, 4-day certifications, and 2 recertifications to help grow that pool of certified burn managers. So through the burn certification, we're going to have more managers out there because the state law actually reduces the risk of a lawsuit if you're a certified prescribed burn manager, if you prepare a burn plan in advance, have a witness or notarize, and you have an auto or an escape under the right to burn law, it shouldn't even go to court. And that's to help, again, say, look, most of our projects come off without a hitch. So there's a real incentive to become a certified burn manager. I personally won't let anybody burn on my property unless they had, you know, liability insurance plus they were a certified burn manager. I want protection under that law. Smoke, this is the big one. A lot of times people say, well, I'm not burning and I'm afraid of the smoke. Again, how many accidents are actually caused from smoke? Very few when you look at what gets done. And most of it happens at 4, 5, 6 a.m., not during the day of the burn. The smoke's a problem. Later, we can mitigate that, mainly through planning. This is that one track I showed the example of the Northwest Point. Every year I burn this. This is the state line road. It's a county road. But it's amazing how much volume of traffic's on that road. And God bless them people up there. I mean, I'd sponsor them, any one of them in NASCAR. I mean, they run up that road. But every time I light this off, I got 2 miles of frontage. So this is on the west side of the road. So I'm ready for an east, northeast, southeast wind. When I do, we burn this every 2 years. I just say a prayer, Lord, just give me 15 minutes. Just don't let the wind shift. And I like that thing. But once it gets in, I got smoke over the road. Is visibility distributed? Now, you can see 3/4 of a mile. So again, smoke is a problem, but if you plan it and implement it, you're not going to be in trouble. Through planning the smoke screen, this is a project up close to the house, and this is a little 50-acre burn. Even though Clay County is very rural, these little dots represent where homes are, people are, smoke-sensitive area. You even think, oh, you couldn't burn that area with any wind direction. Well, yeah, you can, because the first 3 dots south of the burn is where my father-in-law lives and myself. All these other houses are half a mile from the burn. Well, my smoke's going to go up and over the houses. People are down here. I might be choking a buzzard, 7,000 feet with my smoke. So don't let just a simple analysis on that throw. Sometimes people miss an opportunity because they might look at that and say, well, I can only burn with an east wind. Where it pushes the burn area, that blue area, the smoke's going to go west because there's nothing out there. But you can burn with an east wind, north wind, it doesn't matter because you've done the analysis and you kind of determine the risk. Also, I like to encourage people to work with their local VFDs because they're the ones that's going to get called to come out to look at what the public thinks is a wildfire and it's just a controlled burn. So again, another issue, air quality, that's real. We can't really fix that per se, but it's important that the ADM and the regulators realize how important it is to burn, and they do. Even EPA, God bless them, they really understand, hey, there's a price to pay if we don't burn. So we're working closely with it. Public acceptance, we all kind of get it, right? The majority outside the door, they don't get it. 99 out of 100 would look at you, why in the world are you burning? It just doesn't make sense. So again, we have an opportunity to work with it. Because right now, this is us. We're the fox, okay? We're blending in. We're keeping our head down. And if they ever figured out who was in the middle of the crowd, they turn them. So we got to win their hearts and minds. So right now, keep your head down. Limited number of burn days. Well, yes and no. Again, once you understand smoke screening and you do good planning, you'll find out, there's more than 6 burn days a year. Because there's more than burning between December and March. Cost. Even though things go up, prescribed fire is still the least expensive resource tool in our arsenal to get things done. Again, sometimes just heavy fuel loads. You might have a piece of land that's just got this horrendous fuel load. And again, prescribed fire is not going to be the answer. You might have to use mechanical and other treatments to kind of get it beat down before you can safely reintroduce fire. And maybe intensive silvicultural operations, somebody just doesn't want to burn, they don't want any scorch or any fertilization, for whatever reason, that's fine. Okay, this is a quote that I heard some time ago. It's not hard to be stupid, or hard to be wise, just think it's stupid, and something stupid, don't do it. And then people will think you're wise and solid. You know, here's little Billy, it seemed like a good idea at the time. But when that right foot comes off the ground, you know, game over. And here's some old boy, and this is a real picture. Okay, he's suppressing his yard fire. He's probably burning his yard. And it's my oldest son, who's a structural fireman in Silicaga and also a wildfire guy. Matt saw this picture. He said, well, at least he's blowing it into the black. You know, he's not blowing the embers. But that's real. Can you imagine? It's not hard to be wise. Just think it's something stupid. Don't do it. You just want to tell Grandpa, you know, stop. I want to make a shameless plug for the Prescribed Fire Council, the Alabama Prescribed Fire Council. We got a little table out here with a lot of information. We really got a great website. Just like John talked about, all this online information. We really encourage you to visit the Alabama Prescribed Fire Council website. And the last thing I want to leave with you is some considerations. Consider becoming a member of the PFC, and that's the website. It's free, for one. And again, most of you are here because you own land or you take care of land. It's important to you, and there's just a lot of good information. If you're not currently a certified burn manager, if you are a certified burn manager, you want to maintain your currency. One day, every 5 years, you get your ticket punched. If you don't do that, you got to start over. If you're not a member, or not a certified burn manager, you ought to consider becoming one. That's a 4-day course. It's an investment in time. You can't go from, you know, kindergarten to graduate school in a day, right? I mean, it's a lot of stuff, and so it's a big thing to do. Think about it. If the state's going to give you immunity, so to speak, from lawsuits and liability, you can't learn all this stuff about fire planning and fire behavior in a day. But it's very well worth it. Even if you don't personally plan to burn, if you own Timberland or rangeland, you're going to have burning done, I would still consider getting this certification because now you know something. And then also utilize Southern Fire Exchange. It's basically a fire science delivery system, another online-based thing. A lot of really good information is on that. So anyway, I don't know where I am on time. I think I'm okay. Got plenty of time. How about that? And also, they've got a breakout session at 10:45, just right down the street here, not far from the registration table. If you have any other specific questions, you're welcome to come to that at 10:45 with regard to fire. But with that, I'll take any questions. I know that's pretty quick, but you know, just appreciate the opportunity.